he promised to restore security in Burkina Faso.
The pressure of the country's new leadership comes into sharper focus, with an officer declaring himself head of the junta.
But then yesterday, a military spokesperson flanked by officers took to the airwaves to announce that President Mohamed Bazoum had been removed from power.
A new wave of leadership is sweeping across West Africa. Military officers, once seen as mere enforcers of state power, are now stepping into the political arena, claiming to fight for the people, against foreign control, and against corrupt elites. But is this the future of Africa, or just another chapter in its long struggle for true independence?
His supporters hold signs condemning sanctions imposed by the regional body ECOWAS and its backers, France and the EU.
Why are military coups happening? To understand why military coups are happening, we need to look at the bigger picture. The Sahel region has faced decades of instability, terrorist attacks, economic struggles, and political corruption. Civilian governments, often backed by foreign powers, have failed to protect their people, and so the military stepped in, promising change. The Sahel region of Africa has a long history of colonial exploitation, marked by the looting of raw materials, the imposition of economic systems designed to benefit colonial powers, and the suppression of leaders who opposed foreign dominance. During the colonial era, European powers, particularly France and Britain, systematically extracted the region's vast resources, including gold, uranium, cotton, and other valuable commodities. This economic plundering ensured that wealth was funneled out of the Sahel to fuel European industrialization, while leaving the local economies underdeveloped and dependent. Infrastructure projects, such as railways and roads, were primarily constructed to facilitate the transport of these raw materials to ports for export, rather than to benefit the indigenous populations. One of the most insidious tools of economic control introduced by France was the creation of the franc CFA in 1945. This currency, still used by several Sahelian nations today, ensured that their economies remained tied to France, restricting monetary sovereignty. The CFA franc was pegged to the French currency and managed from Paris, effectively allowing France to maintain financial influence over its former colonies. This system has long been criticized for stifling economic growth and keeping West African nations in a cycle of dependency. Perhaps one of the most tragic episodes in the Sahel's post-colonial history is the assassination of Thomas Sankara in 1987. As the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, Sankara sought to break free from neo-colonial influence. He rejected the franc CFA, nationalized key industries, and implemented policies that prioritized self-sufficiency, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. His bold stance against foreign exploitation made him a target of external and internal forces resistant to change. On October 15, 1987, he was overthrown and assassinated in a coup orchestrated by his former ally, Blaise Compaoré, widely believed to have been backed by foreign powers with vested interests in maintaining control over Burkina Faso's resources. Despite the fall of Sankara, the struggle for economic and political independence in the Sahel continues. The region remains a focal point for global powers seeking to exploit its resources, and movements advocating for monetary and political sovereignty have gained traction. Recent coups and political upheavals in the region reflect a broader rejection of neo-colonial systems and a push for a new era of self-determination and economic liberation. The history of colonialism in the Sahel is a stark reminder of the challenges that continue to shape the region's political landscape. However, the legacy of leaders like Thomas Sankara and the growing awareness among the population suggests that the fight for true independence is far from over.
Support for the military coup soon evolved into anger against alleged French interference in the country. That led to an attack on the French embassy on July 30th, but the situation was brought under control by local security forces. But the military junta later demanded the French ambassador leave the country and has now issued an order for his expulsion.
Young Africans are rejecting the influence of former colonial powers. Let's take a closer look at the men leading this revolution. Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso. Youngest leader in Africa, came to power in 2022. Strong anti-imperialist stance, removed French troops, advocating for African self-reliance and economic independence. Assimi Goïta, Mali. Led 2 coups in 2020 and 2021. Strengthened ties with Russia, cutting off France. Forming military alliances with neighboring countries. Abdourahmane Tiani, Niger. Ousted pro-Western leader Mohamed Bazoum in 2023. Challenged ECOWAS sanctions and threats of military intervention. These men are not just military officers. They see themselves as defenders of African sovereignty, breaking the chains of colonialism and foreign dominance. Pan-Africanism in the Sahel has taken on a renewed energy in recent years, driven by leaders who seek to restore sovereignty, economic independence, and unity among African nations. Among these leaders, Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has emerged as a key figure, advocating for a self-reliant and united Africa, free from neocolonial influence. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has consistently emphasized the need for Burkina Faso and the entire Sahel region to break away from Western domination, particularly the lingering effects of French colonialism. Alongside Captain Ibrahim Traoré, other Sahelian leaders, such as Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali and General Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger, have also taken bold steps to redefine their nation's futures. These leaders have formed strong alliances, resisting external pressures while championing the values of Pan-Africanism. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Tiani have repeatedly called for the rejection of the franc CFA, a currency that they argue keeps their economies under the control of former colonial powers. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been particularly vocal about economic self-sufficiency, calling for a new financial system that prioritizes African development. In recent months, the alliance between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Tiani has strengthened. These leaders have openly challenged foreign military bases in their countries, demanding that African nations take full control of their security. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has highlighted the importance of military self-reliance, ensuring that Burkina Faso can defend itself against insurgencies without relying on Western forces. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has not only focused on security and economic independence, but also on the revival of African identity and culture. He frequently invokes the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary Burkinabe leader who stood against imperialism. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has made it clear that the struggle for true Pan-Africanism is a continuation of Sankara's vision. Like Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Tiani have promoted policies that encourage African unity, seeking alliances with other leaders who reject foreign interference. The Sahel is witnessing a historic shift, with Captain Ibrahim Traoré at the forefront, alongside Colonel Assimi Goïta and General Abdourahmane Tiani. Their leadership marks a turning point in the fight for African sovereignty, economic freedom, and regional unity. As Captain Ibrahim Traoré continues to push forward his Pan-Africanist agenda, his influence is shaping the political landscape of the Sahel, inspiring a new generation to embrace self-determination and resist neocolonial control. The rise of Pan-Africanist leaders in the Sahel, spearheaded by Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has led to a historic realignment of power in West Africa. These leaders, who have strongly rejected neocolonial influence, recently took a decisive step by forming the Alliance of Sahel States at ES and announcing their collective withdrawal from ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States. This move signals a new era for the Sahel, one where self-determination and regional solidarity take precedence over external pressures. The Alliance of Sahel States at ES, created by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Chiani, was officially established as a military and economic alliance aimed at fostering regional cooperation without foreign interference. The three leaders have long argued that ECOWAS has become an extension of Western interests, particularly those of France, which continues to exploit the natural resources of West African nations. By forming the AES, the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have taken control of their own security, economic policies, and future development. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a fierce advocate of African unity, has repeatedly emphasized that the Sahel must forge its own path, free from the dictates of foreign-controlled organizations. Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali has echoed these sentiments, stating that ECOWAS no longer serves the interests of its member states, but rather those of Western powers. General Abdourahmane Chiani of Niger has also condemned the economic sanctions imposed by ECOWAS, arguing that they were designed to punish sovereign nations for resisting Western control. The withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger from ECOWAS deals a significant economic blow to both France and the ECOWAS bloc. These three countries collectively hold vast natural resources, including gold, uranium, and oil, which have historically been exploited by France through unfair economic agreements. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who has been vocal about the need to reclaim national resources, has already begun renegotiating mining contracts to ensure that Burkina Faso benefits from its own wealth. For France, the impact is devastating. Niger, under General Abdourahmane Chiani, has one of the world's richest uranium reserves, supplying a significant portion of France's nuclear energy needs. With Niger's exit from ECOWAS and its increasing alignment with the AES, France's access to cheap uranium is now under serious threat. Similarly, Mali under Colonel Assimi Goïta has expelled French troops and cut ties with Paris, further weakening France's economic and military hold in the region. Within ECOWAS, the loss of these three nations creates an economic vacuum. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Chiani have refused to comply with ECOWAS policies, which they view as tools of economic suppression. Their departure could inspire other nations to follow suit, threatening the very foundation of ECOWAS itself. The formation of the Alliance of Sahel States at ES marks the beginning of a new geopolitical era in West Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Chiani have not only strengthened military and economic ties, but have also sent a clear message: the days of Western domination in the Sahel are over. The leaders have already begun exploring partnerships with other Pan-Africanist nations, including Guinea and Chad, signaling that the Sahel could become the epicenter of a broader Pan-African movement. As Captain Ibrahim Traoré continues to advocate for economic sovereignty, Colonel Assimi Goïta reinforces military self-reliance, and General Abdourahmane Chiani dismantles neocolonial structures. The future of the Sahel looks more independent than ever. The collapse of French influence in the region and the weakening of ECOWAS mark a turning point in Africa's struggle for self-governance. The question now is, will other African nations follow the path of the Sahel leaders, or will they remain under the grip of neocolonial institutions? One thing is certain: Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Chiani have already changed the course of history. Since taking power in 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has positioned himself as a key figure in the struggle for sovereignty and self-reliance in the Sahel. His leadership has been marked by bold reforms, aimed at breaking the grip of neocolonial influence and ensuring the long-term stability and prosperity of Burkina Faso. His actions have reverberated beyond national borders, inspiring a regional movement towards self-determination, particularly in Mali and Niger. One of Ibrahim Traoré's most significant early moves was the expulsion of French military forces from Burkina Faso. For decades, French troops had been stationed in the country under the pretense of fighting terrorism, but their presence was increasingly seen as ineffective and even counterproductive. Accusations of France's hidden agenda, resource exploitation, and failure to contain the security crisis fueled widespread resentment. Traoré responded decisively, terminating military agreements and ordering the complete withdrawal of French forces, effectively cutting military ties with France. Burkina Faso, like much of the Sahel region, is rich in natural resources, particularly gold, manganese, and zinc. However, for years, these resources had been exploited by foreign corporations, with little benefit reaching the Burkinabe people. Ibrahim Traoré took a radical step by nationalizing key mineral resources, ensuring that a greater share of the profits from gold and other natural wealth stayed within the country. This move not only increased state revenues, but also weakened France's economic grip on Burkina Faso. Security has been a major concern in Burkina Faso, with the country facing relentless attacks from terrorist groups linked to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Traoré's administration has focused on strengthening the country's local military forces, providing them with better equipment, restructuring command operations, and recruiting thousands of new soldiers and volunteers. Unlike his predecessors, who relied heavily on French assistance, Traoré has taken a more self-reliant approach, ensuring that Burkina Faso's defense is in the hands of its own people. Beyond security, Ibrahim Traoré has been vocal about the need for Africa to achieve economic independence. He has criticized the reliance on Western financial institutions, particularly the CFA franc, which is controlled by France. By encouraging policies that promote local industry, food security, and trade within Africa, Traoré has positioned himself as a leading advocate of Pan-Africanism. His vision aligns with other Sahel leaders, particularly in Mali and Niger, who share his commitment to reducing Western economic dominance. The influence of Ibrahim Traoré's leadership has extended beyond Burkina Faso, inspiring similar policies in Mali and Niger, both of which have undergone military-led transitions in recent years. Mali and Niger, like Burkina Faso, have gradually distanced themselves from France, accusing the former colonial power of economic exploitation and failed security policies. In response, they have strengthened ties with Russia and China, seeking military and economic partnerships that provide greater autonomy from Western powers. Russia has supplied military equipment and training, while China has engaged in infrastructure development and trade deals that prioritize mutual benefit. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso announced the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. This alliance serves as a regional bloc focused on security, economic cooperation, and political independence. One of its main goals is to counter Western influence, particularly France and ECOWAS, which have often imposed economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure on these countries. In January 2024, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger announced their decision to leave ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States. This move was driven by frustration over ECOWAS sanctions, which were often seen as benefiting Western interests rather than addressing the needs of the people. The exit marks a major economic and political shift in West Africa, weakening France's influence over the region. France has faced significant economic setbacks due to these developments, with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger nationalizing their resources and canceling French military agreements. France has lost billions of dollars in revenue. Additionally, French companies that once dominated the mining and energy sectors in the Sahel are being pushed out, further diminishing French economic control. ECOWAS, which largely serves the interests of pro-Western governments, also suffers from the loss of 3 key member states. Trade routes, financial agreements, and regional integration efforts have been disrupted, leading to uncertainty about ECOWAS's future effectiveness. The Sahel region has been plagued by terrorism and insurgencies, often exacerbated by foreign interventions. Colonel Assimi Goïta's decision to partner with Russia, instead of relying on French troops, has reportedly improved security in Mali. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has vowed to take direct military action against extremist groups rather than depending on ineffective foreign assistance. The formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, (AES), by these leaders is a historic move towards African self-reliance. By exiting ECOWAS, they are rejecting Western-dominated economic policies and creating new trade and defense alliances that prioritize African interests. Are these achievements enough to create lasting change? And can military governments truly replace democracy? The big question remains: are these military leaders the solution Africa needs? Or are they just temporary fixes to deeper problems? The rise of Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, Colonel Assimi Goïta in Mali, and General Abdourahmane Chiani in Niger has sparked intense debate about the balance between strong leadership and the risks of dictatorship. While these leaders have been praised for resisting neocolonial control, strengthening national sovereignty, and promoting Pan-Africanism, concerns remain about the potential dangers of authoritarian rule. Their leadership has enabled their nations to renegotiate resource contracts, ensuring that their gold, uranium, and oil benefit their own people rather than foreign corporations. Strong leaders can implement reforms quickly without the bureaucratic delays of a weak democratic system. General Abdourahmane Chiani's swift action against France's military presence in Niger demonstrated his decisiveness and refusal to compromise national sovereignty. The challenge for Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdourahmane Chiani is to maintain their Pan-African vision while ensuring that democracy and civil liberties are not eroded. Can they avoid the pitfalls of dictatorship while continuing their fight for sovereignty? The people of the Sahel want strong, decisive leadership, but they also want leaders who serve the people, not just themselves. The future of the region will depend on whether these leaders can find a balance between strength and accountability, power and democracy, independence and cooperation. What happens when these leaders leave power? Can they build long-term political structures? ECOWAS and the African Union, are they protecting democracy or foreign interests? What's next for Africa? One thing is clear: Africa is changing. Whether led by military officers or elected leaders, the future of the continent will be shaped by those who fight for its sovereignty. The real question is, will the people remain in control, or will history repeat itself? Do you believe military leadership is the solution for Africa, or do we need a different approach? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.